Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fierce and Flowing podcast. Today, I have a very special guest for you today, and I'm so excited to speak with her because just like me, she straddles the spiritual and the business. And when you bring both of those together, it's magical. It's magical for us as individuals to work on our transformation, to help heal others, and to bring in the practicality of business so that we can be successful in our lives, which is what we're here to do. So let me introduce you to my guest today. Her name is Eugenia Oganova, and she is a business strategist and marketing energetics coach, and we'll talk more about what that means. She has over 2 decades of experience. She's a self-made multi-millionaire and clairvoyant. Eugenia has been featured on major platforms such as Fox, NBC, CBS, USA Today, and many, many others. She's been on more than 100 podcasts. And so I'm so lucky to have her on this podcast and in many publications. And she's an internationally best-selling author of 4 books. And she's going to show us those books, especially the 2 that all of you may want to read. Eugenia, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It's such a joy to have you.
Oh, Monique, thank you so much for having me. I'm very glad that we're going to dive into a lot of this really fun stuff together.
Absolutely. And so for the sake of not reading your full bio, I would love for you to share with us at this moment right now, what's most important about the work that you're doing and the individuals that you're doing it with.
Yeah, I work with personal transformation people. So those are coaches, healers, could be herbalists, acupuncturists. This is somebody who internally knows that their mission in life is somehow to help humanity or change the consciousness of human collective.
Right.
That has been my own mission for a very long time. So connecting that with personal mastery, with living consciously is my passion. It's about not just business structures and strategies and things like that, which of course are important for business to actually function and generate
Right.
income. But the other side of how do you do this? Like, are you loving your life? Are you loving your business? Are things working for you, or are you pushing through to make something happen? Because in my philosophy, the energetics is first and
Right.
everything else, the strategy and other stuff are second. So even though action is required in a world, being someone who always looks at reality from that conscious angle, that is what I help my clients do. Because so many times when we have a goal, we forget that we are actually included, that like how we're feeling, how we're thinking, our energetics of the moment
Right.
affect what it is we're doing. So we think like, okay, I'm going to meditate over here, but over there, I'm going to like do my life, my business, my career, my whatever it is that the goal is, when actually those two go together. So
Right.
this is the part that for me is the foundation of everything I do, is that we must live by our soul design, how
Yeah.
we are built. And that includes a lot of components that are internal first. And then the
Absolutely.
action is taken on them. That's how it becomes an aligned action. So then instead of pressure and forcing yourself into shit that doesn't work or feels like you're wearing shoes a size too small and
Yes.
you're trying to walk a mile in them and you're hurting and you're wondering why is it not working, instead you actually living your life in a way that feels like magic. It
Yeah.
feels like it's unfolding in front of you, and it's like a treasure hunt, and it feels alive and exciting. And yes, there are difficult moments always, because that's part of living, but you are in control in a conscious way of what you're doing,
Yeah.
instead of in this negative, manipulative, internal grasping. So that's what I'm passionate about. And I work with my clients in application to generating income through their soul work in a world.
So important, because I think you and I both know that healers, coaches, individuals with spiritual gifts that wanted to bring it out into the world, many of them did it in secret. You know, they were afraid to bring it out into the public. And then the conversation of how do I actually make money? And I have found that many of them feel guilty making money using their gifts. Right. But I feel that a part of the awakening that we're going through is recognizing the value of our spiritual gifts, the many spiritual tools that are out there to help us, like you said, live consciously. And what I've noticed over the years is that, so many of us were raised with a different philosophy, that said, we have to suffer. We have to suffer. We have to sacrifice. We need to just work to make money, but not to enjoy the work we're doing. And we're really in a shifting of that whole trajectory of work now. And so it's beautiful to see so many people wake up to their gifts and recognizing that we have to bring our gifts with us into the work life and not just separate. This is who I am at home, and this is who I am, behind my spiritual closet, and then this is how I show up in the office. When the two are not aligned, we are not happy, we're not fulfilled, we're not able to really, show up, like you said, in the magic. So love it, love it. How did you come to this yourself? When did you realize that this was your mission?
Well, this is something that is sort of an odd answer, but I do everything backwards in my life. So most people, like, they start from like, oh, I sense something, then they fall asleep, and then life happens, childhood happens, all sorts of wounds happen, and then maybe later on in their late 20s, 30s, 50s, sometimes they awaken to, oh my God, I have gifts. I used to have intuition. Let me kind of start to wake this up again. That's not my journey. My journey is I was born conscious. So I was born clairvoyant, and I was born without losing memory of previous lifetimes. So
Wow.
I remember being inside my mother. I remember the birth process. I remember everything from the start.
Okay.
Because of that, I always felt like an old person. Like I
Mhm.
never was a child, even when I was in a child body. So by the time I was 2 years old, I was already trying to give people advice. I was doing it through pictures. And it took a while, but they understood that, like, oh, she scribbles this or she says that, like this color versus that. That means maybe I shouldn't tell my husband this, or maybe I should tell my boss that. And they started applying it. And then kind of it became like, oh, okay, this kid knows stuff. So I kind of became known as one of these odd children, which was
Okay.
all cute very much at the beginning. But then, of course, at school, that wasn't so cute. I was called a witch. I was called a weirdo. I was bullied
Yes.
and all that stuff. So, I mean, I went through my own dark times with that. But because I never could turn that off, like
Mhm.
my ability to see reality in this multidimensional way, I kind of always had this application to service. Like to me, it
Yeah.
was like, well, okay, humans could be mature. Yes, okay, kids could be like unconscious and adults too. And I kind of always had that part. So
Right.
because of it, when you looking at something that you seeing one way and others see the other, you have options. You can either say they are right and I'm
Mhm.
crazy and what I'm seeing is not true, it's not happening. Or you can say, well, I'm right and they are all crazy,
I
which
think that's
probably,
the better option.
yeah, but that's going to make for a pretty hard life.
Yeah.
Or you can say both are okay.
Mhm.
They are at a different level of perception than
Right.
I am.
Right.
And they are not wrong. They just can't see certain things because of the level of perception they're at. And my level is more expanded, so I
Yes.
can see more or perceive more. I'm very
Yes.
visual, so I use the word see. So that's kind of was my decision earlier on. And once I realized that, oh, okay, there's like 99% of what I'm seeing, perceiving about, like, well, it's so obvious. If you do this, this would happen. And then people go on such detours and it's not obvious to them. That's like, oh, 99% of what I know, they don't. So that very
Mm.
quickly became, because I'm so service oriented, it's like, well, I want to help. I
Yes.
want to share this so that they don't have to struggle so much. And of course, my family was my guinea pigs and they did not like it. But by the time I was 14 years old, other people found out more that I do this and I started to have paying clients. So my business began when I was 14, sort of slightly hidden
Right.
because I was in Soviet Union at the time and business was illegal anyway. Like you could be an entrepreneur, so everything was a little bit hidden. But it was the process of people came to me for understanding why they're here, so their soul mission, and
Mhm.
how to uncover what is it that they here for, like their gifts that they meant to share, but also what's in a way. And most of the
Right.
time, of course, it would start from like, well, I'm having this physical condition or I'm having this psychological thing. What does it mean? And then we will dig into that and kind of clear it up and realize like, oh, this is where the lesson is. This is what you actually meant to do. So that's how I started.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of my clients happened to be business owners, also in secret at the time, and they were all trying to do something with whatever their gifts were, which might not have been even spiritual necessarily gifts, but something that they were trying to do, maybe sewing outfits or
Right.
fixing shoes or something like that. But it was a business, and I would tell them something, they would apply, but then their business would work better. And they would be like, oh, thank you so much for helping me with my marketing. I now say this and it works. Or my message is now so much better. I can answer the question in such a way that people always want to, purchase my service or my product. And I'm like, I'm doing what? Marketing, messaging? Like, what are those things? I didn't even know, of course, at 14. So over the years, I've learned and became a business coach and everything. But my journey has always been about who are you? What are you here to do? What's in the way? And because it was so easy for me naturally to generate income through it. Like I did not have that spiritual embarrassment about charging for my gift because, well, I
Right.
guess I suffered for it enough that it didn't feel like it was, free. That it just naturally progressed into helping people not hide the
Yeah.
thing that they were good at.
Right.
And so many people were told that the very thing that they're good at is actually a bad thing. So they've learned to suppress that. Like maybe they were, like for me, I was always told you're too much. And it's like, yeah, I'm a leader. But for many people, it translated into you're too much. You always talk. You always have to be first. And it's like, no, actually, I don't have to be first, but I end up being first
Your
because of,
gift.
right.
It's
So
part of
it's
your
like,
gift.
yeah, there's certain pieces that I had to internally figure out how humans see it versus what my perception was. And I studied psychology, I've studied
Mm-hmm.
theosophy, like I've studied a lot of things to mostly translate
Mm-hmm.
what is it that I've already known and seen so that I can help people better because
Right.
now I understand the dynamics of what's going on within each person and why that's happening, which
Right.
of course connects to the soul design. When we're not living in alignment with how we're meant to be, we're functioning in a way that's entropic. So it's like we're constantly borrowing energy from something. That's why everybody's
Yes.
exhausted and have all this friction in their lives. And if you are in alignment with who you are naturally meant to be, then the friction disappears. And
Beautiful.
that's kind of the life I think that most people want to live, right? Not necessarily where everything is always easy, but where it feels like you're in the flow instead of going against the flow all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the language that I use, that's why I call this fiercely flowing. I feel that living a conscious life, you know, really understanding who we are, who we're meant to be, the gifts we're here to use, and also to understand the lessons we're here to learn. For me, astrology is one of my favorite tools. I just feel that it's a beautiful language and roadmap to support others in seeing what they don't see and beginning to honor and validate this is who I am, right? And I get to honor who I am and bring it to the world authentically, but I also get to understand what's the best way and the smartest way to relate to others who are different than me. Maybe their energy is different than mine. And so being a smart business person is also in a very conscious way saying, okay, so maybe in this scenario, I need to show up in a slightly different way so that our energies, communicate with each other and flow with each other a little bit more. But when we are in alignment, our life does flow. When we make conscious, intentional decisions, we are in flow more often. Um, what are some of the tools? Obviously, I'm imagining that today as a clairvoyant, right? And so clairvoyance means you see, right? Do you see visions, information in your mind?
I see timelines, I see possibilities, I see opportunities. So to me, it's like, if you want like more literal sense, it's as if a movie shows up in my head, little snapshots. Sometimes they play, sometimes they just pictures, connected with whoever I'm speaking to. So I'm getting sort of constant download of things. If something, I've actually learned to block off some of it because
Sure.
it's really not fun to go in a grocery store when you're like seeing everybody's story all the time. So I had to work on turning this into like, okay, when do I go full scan or partial scan or deep dive into somebody? But yeah, what I see is visual snapshots or little movies of possible timelines, and then we can see which one is the more beneficial. That's how we create through the quantum field. So I teach people how to apply that onto what they want to create, and if what they want to create is even aligned to what they meant to create. So there's that.
Beautiful.
Because a
Yes.
lot of times we come up with like, oh, I want this. And it's based on, okay, here's your mother, here's your father, here's somebody else who had this expectation of you and something else. And like, none of this has anything to do with what you meant to do.
Right.
So then usually I get this sigh of relief from a client, like, oh my God, I don't have to make this thing happen. It's like, no, not this thing, but this other thing.
It's someone
And
else's story. It's not your story.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. So yeah, I see it from that standpoint. Plus, I also have more like literal clairvoyance, as in I see energy field. So I see chakras, I see different levels of the field and dynamic of the field. That's actually what my first book is about, because
Okay.
I've taught that for like 15 years, like a school. And then at some point I moved on from that more onto the business side.
Mhm.
But my first book, Mission Alpha, The Wise and Passionate You, that is the book that is literally the manual for your energy field and how it all works and what it means, which I
Mhm.
think is so lacking in the spiritual community, that everybody kind of like took this, whatever it is that they're recycling from Hindu, about like, okay, here is the how it works, right? So they took like chakra looks like this and is this color and this means that. And it's like nobody goes further when actually there's like a whole science behind that. So that book will teach you, if you're like into understanding, okay, I know chakras, okay, I know levels, but like, what does it actually mean? Like,
Mhm.
if I'm feeling sad, which level, which chakra is affected? What does it look when I'm sad? How do I correct that? Or if I'm upset with somebody, or if I think my boundary is a problem, I'm picking up other people's energies and so on. All this stuff is described in that book and what to do about it. And that's
Beautiful.
like translation of my clairvoyance. I always laugh that if somebody could memorize my Mission Alpha book, they could fake being psychic because it's that good. Like, they could literally just translate like, oh, that means your energy is doing this, it's this color, and this chakra is doing that, because literally all of this is laid out there. So if you want deep dive, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing. It
And
also sounds like that's a really good resource for individuals who are highly sensitive, who
yeah,
are,
and it's meant to be a manual. Like, it's
yeah,
not an easy read. It's more like a reference book. Yes.
right, right. Um, so clairvoyance is one of your tools. When you're working with your clients, what are the other ways that you help them to align with their soul? How else do you, are there tools or assessments or,
Well, yeah, there are many
Mhm.
things, and we use archetypes and we use natural soul design of a person. So when somebody comes in to work with me into one of my programs, we look at their soul design kind of as a start, because to me, that's a foundation of whatever they're going to create. Soul
Okay.
design is sort of my invention. It's a combination of reading their Akashic records, looking at
Mhm.
their timelines, looking at which gifts they brought. And then I use different tools like human design, like quantum human design, and all sorts of different things, I Ching and many. But the point is, it's
You
an
sound like me.
amalgamation. Yeah, it's an amalgamation of it all, plus my own ability to see and perceive and pull out what's needed, that gives you few very important pieces. And my specialty is profit potential. So
Okay.
not just like what your magical gifts are, which is nice to know,
Nice
but
to
in
know.
application to business, as in what is your profit potential? Because not all gifts are for sale. Not all gifts
Right.
are meant to generate your income. Some gifts are totally awesome and they just for you. Some gifts are for maybe your family, but other gifts that you might not even right now think of as a money-making thing is actually what meant to go, let's say, in your message or in your marketing. So that's the part that I pull out with my coaches and healers and people in that personal transformation niche that I work with, in order to adjust their business for more ease, for more flow. Because now we are focusing all our business strategy and marketing and messaging and the way we sell, the way we show up in the world, and like how even they do videos or presentations, like
Right.
everything on what archetype are they, what is their design, how they meant to do it, so that it feels easier. That's how
Right.
you get to do like one or two things that you focus on, instead of trying to do 200 things.
Right.
Like when people come to me and say like, oh my God, do I need to like dance on TikTok and have, this and have that? It's like, no, you don't need all of that. You need one or two things that are actually aligned, and then let's get really good at doing that.
Right.
So
And
yes, there
marketing
is
that and
work involved, but
communicating it.
you want to
Yeah.
work in the right way, not
Yes.
in like busy way. Yes.
I really find that still today a lot of, I say women because the majority of individuals that I work with are women,
Me too.
leaders, women coaches who are in that phase where they want to bring their gifts out. They want to monetize their passions and desires. But one of the most difficult things that I see is they have a hard time really identifying what their niche is, right? And it sounds like you got really clear about this is the niche, it's the wealth portion. For those individuals who are listening, who maybe for whatever reason right now can't work with a coach, have read books already, what advice would you give them right now to help them figure out on their own what's the best way to identify the niche that they should be working in?
Yeah, the niche, how you saying it in the, there's a concept of that in a business world, but then
Yeah.
there's a spiritual aspect of
Okay.
it. So I always start with the spiritual side because to me, that's where, the origin of everything is. So from the spirituality side, your niche is not something that like, oh, this is what's going to make me money. This is what I think logically should go for, where I should sell stuff because I have the skill. To me, there are other things that need to be done first.
Mm-hmm.
And then a niche is more of a natural consequence. So I teach it
Mm.
differently.
Okay.
And the things that need to be done first is you need to understand what is your soul expertise. Soul
Okay.
expertise is not the skills. It's not the stuff you learned. It's not like I went to school and now I'm a good acupuncturist or I'm an herbalist or I know how to do, I don't know, Akashic record reading because I'm certified Akashic
Right.
reader. Like none of those things. These are things that you've learned. So we want to go before that into
Mm.
the like what suitcase did you bring into this lifetime of goodies from other lifetimes that are yours, that owned. Maybe people tell you secrets and
Right.
you don't even know why, but they just always do, even if you're sitting next to somebody on the airplane. Maybe people call you and say like, oh my God, can I just come and hang out in your house because it's just so calming. Like I'm having a hard day. You
Right.
don't even need to do anything. I just gonna sit in your kitchen. Like whatever these little things are that like make a list of, if you don't know, ask your friends, they'll tell you. But it's
Exactly.
something that is innate and it's a quality and it affects your environment and your interaction with other people. Like for me,
Beautiful.
one of my superpowers like that is that I always go to the root of the problem. I do not do small talk. I never was equipped to do it. And some people used to think like, oh, she's so rude. She just talks right to the point. But other people so like, oh my God, this is like amazing. I would spend years
Finally,
of therapy
somebody's
on this
telling
and
me the
somebody could
truth.
just like tell me. So I kind of realized that, okay, so my superpower for some people, it's a bad thing, but for other people, that's exactly what they need because
Yeah.
that's literally my innate expertise. I know how to dig through all this confusion right to the point in a split second. The person might not even finish the sentence of what they're trying to ask me. And I
Yeah.
already know the answer because of how I'm wired. So you might have a way maybe to succinctly put something in words that another person might have to like kind of like abridged version when
Right.
somebody else would have get lost in details. Maybe it's the other way. Maybe you can pull something apart in a very small pieces, bite-sized pieces that the person can understand. You're a good teacher like that. Maybe you're somebody who has incredible patience. Maybe you're somebody who's able to be in somebody's presence and be such a good, conscious, active listener without even saying anything that the
Right.
person feels so loved and
And so
cared
held.
for when you
Right.
didn't even like physically do anything. So
Yeah.
understanding that is your step one. And in
Love it.
my book, Wealth by Soul Design, I
Okay.
literally have like whole methodology of how to do that.
Okay.
When you do this, and I have assessments there, and you can get free archetype assessment and everything that I teach in that book, Wealth by Soul Design. So
Love
if you
it.
go and get that one, wealthbysouldesign.com is when you
Okay.
get that book with the bonuses. You can also get
Okay.
it on Amazon, but without the bonuses. So if you want all the stuff I'm talking about here, go get it on the website because you get tons of bonuses that will teach you this. Once you understand your expertise, now niche naturally comes out of that because now we combine what are the skills, what are your personal interests,
Mm-hmm.
and what is it that you really amazing at. And now we see that, like, let's say, I'll give you an example.
Yeah,
One of my
sure.
clients, Catherine, she was a healer. She's an energy healer, but she was kind of trying to do just healing for everybody. And she was getting a lot of people with health issues and
Mm.
it was difficult. And kind of, yeah, she's good at it, but it was not joyful for her to work with that. And she kept wanting to do something more mindset related, but, a lot of people she was attracting was more like physical ailments and stuff like
Okay.
that. And when we looked at her design, it was very clear that like, okay, her natural thing is about helping people perceive something where they feel like it's a hindrance, but see that as an opportunity. Like
Okay.
there was this thing, like in any difficulty, she could find the power that could move the person to a next level just by
Okay.
realization sometimes.
Wow.
So sort of like turn the lesson into power, that to
Yes.
shorten it. Okay, so then we looked at what her life was, and she, in her previous before healing world, she was a nurse and she was working with corporate world and all that, and she then discovered her psychic abilities, and her husband left her over that thinking she's insane, and then she had to raise her daughter on her own, and then she had to go through this dark times of divorce and realizing who she is and turn her lesson into power, right?
Wow.
So then we looked at that with a combination of the superpowers, and it's obvious that here the niche is, yes, obviously she's an energy healer,
Hmm.
but she's an energy healer for women who went through divorce,
Yes.
because now afterwards they're trying to figure out how to resurrect themselves like a phoenix out of ashes and
Yes.
become something that's more than what they were, and
Right.
find their gifts, which whatever those were. So now see how the niche naturally was a consequence. It
Yeah.
emerged, and it's still energy healing, but now she talks from that angle. Her messaging is from that angle, marketing is from that angle. So she attracts to her people who are
In
in
that
the
space, and that's
type
what they
that
need.
she loves
Hmm.
to talk to, because she knows it, she lived it.
Yes.
Right? So these people also, of course, might have physical ailments, but not the main reason why they come to her. They come to her for exactly her superpower,
Yeah.
because of how she's positioned in the marketplace. So that's the profit potential in the soul design. It's understanding that combination. So in
Beautiful.
the Wealth by Soul Design book, you can figure this out on your own to whatever degree. And if you're ready for more, then of course, I'm here to help you go further.
I love that. Thank you for sharing it. Because a lot of times, I'm a big believer in asking powerful questions of ourselves, right? And based on everything you just shared, for those just getting started, and it sounds like your book is an amazing resource. So, definitely go out and get that book and the bonuses as well. I'm sure the bonuses are amazing. But asking ourselves those questions, right? Just starting there, like why do people come to me? Why do my friends pick up the phone and call me versus someone else? What is it that I innately, without thinking, am giving them, am sharing with them, that is special, that no one else is doing, right? And that in and of itself can provide us with so much clarity in that space when we're trying to figure out, how am I going to develop a business that's going to be, not only feel good and aligned, but is going to bring me the success that I need to survive in this, 3D world that we're in. So love it. Okay. So this is a great opportunity to just kind of, you talked about the phoenix rising from the ashes, and this is the fierce moment that I love to bring out from my guests, because what I have learned is that we all have a lot of fierce moments in our lives, but there are some in particular that really are those, phoenix rising from the ashes moments that change the trajectory of our life, of our success, of our spirituality. And so I'd love for you to share, what was one of those fierce moments for you in your life that had you dig deep, jump off a cliff without looking if there was something to catch you, and not worrying about what anybody thought, or anybody cared about what you were doing. It was really about, this is the moment, this is the time, I have to do this. What was that for you?
Yeah, for me, this was a shift in my business direction.
Okay.
So since I was 14, I was building my business in a particular way that had to do with expanding as large as possible. I was traveling the world. I was teaching in many different countries, 27 actually, and I was everywhere all the time with
Yeah.
lots of people.
Okay.
So it's sort of like, think of it like a lower level market. So I was selling a lot of like large audience direction. And
Okay.
as much as rewarding as this was from the standpoint of service, because I'm good at what I do, so I could see the transformation. I was getting like love notes from my clients about, oh my God, you changed my life. Like all this goody stuff was happening. So from the outside, it looked like charmed life. Like, my God, she's popular. She's everywhere. She's doing all these amazing things there. I was booked year ahead.
Wow.
Like there was no problem from any standpoint that anybody could say. Plus, I'm confident. I know what I'm talking about. So like it looked good. But
Yeah.
on the inside, I had one burnout, and I kind of recovered, and I had another burnout, and then I kind of recovered. And by the third burnout, I was like, okay, I cannot do this anymore. Like I literally, like I want to die.
Right.
I don't want to do this, not necessarily like literally kill myself, but I don't
Yeah.
want to have this life. Like literally, I can just walk away from all of this. That's how internally it felt. And it was confusing to me
Hmm.
because I was living the life of service. I was helping people. I was
Yes.
doing the thing that is in alignment with what I meant to do.
Yeah.
I'm literally using my gifts. So I knew that I'm not living like against myself or doing something I shouldn't be doing. Like I'm doing the right thing. Why am I so miserable inside?
Right.
And this is where I realized that I need to readjust who I'm talking to. I need to
Right.
readjust how I'm doing my business. I structured it incorrectly, which is funny. I mean, I teach soul design to my clients, and somehow I didn't apply that part to myself. So when I applied it to myself, and I realized that, all right, I meant to work with people who have large communities. So like I'm a leader and I meant to work with leaders to affect them to then affect their communities. And I was trying to go to community itself and affect
Gotcha.
literally people.
Right.
And that's the part that was causing this internal misery and burnout because I was working with smaller issues. And one of the indicator was I tested it sort of. And as I said, like, okay, I'm going to have clients this week and I mean I was booked every week. I was working 12-hour days, 6 days a week.
It's not
So
sustainable. Yeah.
exactly, but I was sustaining it for 20 years or
Right.
15 years by then. And I was like, okay, this is insane. I'm going to, for this week, give my clients 80% of what I normally give them. Try to hold 20 for myself and see how that works. Nobody noticed. I did next week. Okay, next week, let's do 50%. Nobody noticed.
Wow.
Next week, let's do 30%. Nobody noticed. I got to 10% and they still haven't noticed, which is when I realized, whoa, I'm not doing something here, right?
Wow.
Because if I can hold back 90%, that means they couldn't have taken in what I'm giving them.
Right.
I'm giving
Right.
them something bigger than this specific client is capable of even comprehending. So then
Yeah.
why am I giving them that thing? No wonder I'm exhausted
Yeah.
because it's like they can't swallow the meal I'm giving them.
I'm
So,
also imagining that um, right now with the structure that you have, you're able to actually not only give so much, but you're actually able to see and monitor the intake,
oh
the
yeah,
success of it, the sustainability of it for your actual clients.
well, yeah, and that's a transformation. So, like, if you want the shift part was understanding all of this, which is
Mhm.
kind of me decoding my burnout. And then by the
Right.
time I got to understanding this, I realized that what I have to walk away from. And this is where everybody thought I was
Mm.
absolutely insane. Like, what do you
Right.
mean you're going to walk away from this? This is what people like go towards. But, this is the goal of many people. But to me, it's like, no, I have to walk away. And I sort of took a year where I just did maintenance. Like I've seen clients and whatever, but I stopped traveling. I stopped
Okay.
doing all these big events. I turn that part off. And I used to do international travel tours to sacred sites and stuff, turn all of that off. I used to teach big events, turn all of that off.
Mm.
So I essentially just trusted me and said, okay, I have to find a different way. And then I did not know what that way was. So
Wow.
I
Yeah.
sort of like jumped off that cliff to big to almost nothing, just maintaining to pay the bills and kind of hoping that something else would emerge because I knew internally it has to because I'm here to serve and it's not going to just be turned off because, oops, she burned out. Like something else has
Right.
to happen. So during that year, I recharged
Okay.
and I kind of like found more of myself. And from that, I came up with, okay, I need to speak with leaders. Okay. I need to speak with people who can take in 100% of what I'm giving them. And yes, if I work with them longer term, I can see the progress and we can
Mhm.
continue the process of working. So I shifted my business from the lower end market to a
Mhm.
higher ticket market. So I created longer offers that were much deeper, that included all the beautiful stuff I wanted to teach them in the first place, but they couldn't quite receive.
Right.
For now, people who actually can and want to and need it. And that combination created a perfect connection, because now clients that I attract are exactly the type of people I like, people I want to work with, people that not only don't exhaust me, I like after every call, I'm excited, like I'm
Yes.
energized because I'm speaking with my kind of people. So it feels
Right.
great. And it changed my whole business. Also, that changed my income, because
Mhm.
that's where the profit potential piece was. That's why I was saying it's kind of funny. I teach others
Yeah,
how
it
to do
happens
that myself.
in the opposite way.
Right.
Okay.
So when I applied it to myself, it's like, oh, I'm now working 1 or 2 days a week and I'm making probably 10 times more than what I was making back then.
Yeah.
And I'm happier and I have more space and I work with the right people and I still give the 100%, the very same 100%, but to the people who can and receive it and need it and
Right.
want it.
Yeah.
And there, that creates syntropy instead of entropy. So instead of
Mhm.
losing energy, I'm now
Mhm.
gaining, and so is the client. So it
Yeah.
creates much better results. And that's what I then started to teach other people, like, okay, let's look at, if you right now have a business and your business is working, but you're sort of the slave of it
Right.
instead of the other way around, which kind of was my situation. And you
Yes.
love your business. You don't want to not do it. You just want to do it in a way that feels like you're not dying in the process. Great. Let's look at what is it that you need to adjust. And a lot of times it's like 1 or 2 degree shifts. And it's
Right.
easier to do when somebody like me can see it and show you what the option is. For me, when I did it myself, I didn't have somebody to do that with. So I literally had to just trust that, okay, the better version does exist. I'm going to pause this and then arrive on the other end. And to me, self-trust is one of the biggest tools that I think every entrepreneur should
Yeah.
have, must have in their toolbox. Because if you don't know how to trust yourself, then you can never risk. And without risk, you cannot do anything in,
Right.
like, at all in entrepreneurship. So risk is involved even in just visibility, just showing up and doing a public video or presentation, or like this, going on a podcast. Like,
Mhm.
you don't know what the outcome would be. You don't have any guarantee from the universe that everything's going to work out. You can do a launch and it flops, or, somebody could not purchase whatever it is that you put out. Like, there's, life happens,
Yeah.
but that resiliency of managing through that instead of survival by the
Yes.
hardship, like my
Right.
previous strategy was survival, like through stoicism. But now it's more like, oh, I can just glide through all of this because I'm aligned to what I'm actually meant to do. And
Yeah.
that's what I think is so important with the self-trust. And self-trust, by the way, is not something that you're either born with or you're not. Self-trust is
Cultivated.
something you can build, and
Yes.
there's very specific ways how, and I mean, I teach my clients how,
Mhm.
but here, for simplicity reasons, think of it like it's a follow through on what you know is right. So
Absolutely.
if you just do that, no matter how scared you are, no matter how
Mhm.
illogical or unreasonable the whatever you downloaded from the universe seems like, but you choose to do it anyway, like
Right.
you choose to go and pitch yourself to somebody you didn't think would ever look at you twice, doesn't matter. Just energetically, by the fact of you pitching, something else might open up, even if that person never opens your email, and so on. Just trusting these little things and doing them, the
Yeah.
more you follow through on that, the more self-trust you're going to have, which is going into your cosmic bank account to then be able to actually make these big quantum
Right.
leaps that progress you to a next level of yourself.
Beautiful. I actually think that's a beautiful definition of what being fierce is, you know, is follow through on what you know is right, you
Mhm.
know? And that's how we begin to build the trust, is listening to ourselves, doing the work, the soul work, the alignment work, connecting with it. All of that helps to build trust. And in the world of entrepreneurship, I think what can be a problem for many entrepreneurs I've seen, including myself, is you get advice from so many people. And you have, this is the way one entrepreneur did it, this is the way another entrepreneur did it, and you have so many different ways of operating that worked for others, which confuses the way that you intuitively know you need to do it for yourself. And so we begin sometimes listening to others, but not listening to ourselves and trusting ourselves. And I really feel that to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to have that foundation of self-trust. And what I got from what you said also is two things. In these fierce moments, which I've learned in my own fierce moments, you have to give yourself space, right? For some people, it's a few months. For some people, it's a year sabbatical. Give yourself the space to feel again, to gain back your energy, to revitalize your energy, and to start allowing for, the downloads to come in. And then the second thing is that when you do that, the way shows up, right? The pathway. I mean, maybe that's the niche, to your point, right? The niche comes after you've aligned and after you've taken, a few steps forward. So I love that. I love that. I'll ask you one more question and then we'll wrap up. In your opinion right now, with the clients that you're working with, I know that sabotage is a big thing. How are you noticing that individuals are typically sabotaging themselves?
Projecting their authority onto external world. When they start worrying about what other people would think, when they start worrying, what if I'm going to be embarrassed because this thing doesn't sell? What if I'm going to do this video and I'm going to be tongue-tied and not say the right things? What if I'm not going to look good? What if I go on stage and forget what I was going to say? And all this other crap that comes up when we start looking at others as more important than us. So in psychology, that's called projection of authority. So
Okay.
authority that's projected, think of it like you have a flashlight and you're putting it outside, you're looking at
Right.
others and you're thinking that's your authority, when you're supposed to be the lighthouse. So
Mm.
you're supposed to bring that flashlight back in and
Mhm.
you shine the light to others to find way to you, not looking at your flashlight reflected by others.
Right.
So
Beautiful.
that would be, to me, the main form of self-sabotage. And literally anything that you notice, like, oh, I can't because
Mm.
if this, then as soon as you're in this thinking, look for where that I projected my authority onto something. It could be that, well, this podcast would never accept me, or, well, I can't possibly do a video on this. Who am I to? I can't charge this much. Who am I to?
Right.
I don't know. I'm not an expert enough. Let me study and get like 5 more certifications before I
Right.
can open my mouth. All
Yes.
this stuff is a projection of authority. Basic visibility issues, like people think like visibility is something about how they look. It's not. It's all projection of authority. So if you look at your life and you see anytime you bump into self-sabotage, even procrastination, right?
Yeah.
People fixate on, oh, I'm procrastinating. I need like an app to help me not procrastinate. No, you need to look at the root of the problem. Why are you procrastinating? And the
Yeah.
why would usually be, is the action either not aligned with your soul design? So
Mhm.
you're trying to do something that feels wrong, but you're overriding it,
Yeah.
and you need to find a better way of doing it, or outsource it, or maybe you don't
Yeah.
even need to do it. Or is it something that actually does need to be done, something that is aligned, but you projected your authority onto maybe your parent back in childhood, and you need to go back in time and take it back?
Right.
Because, like for me, when I was in school, I had a teacher who told me, you should never write. You suck at it. You're horrible at it. You should never, ever write. Please, Eugenia, never write anything. You're really bad at it. I wrote 4 internationally best-selling books. So it's like you have to take your power back when people tell you something, because it took me a while to realize, like with that teacher, the reason she thought that I shouldn't write is because I did not write according to a specific structure that she thought was acceptable. I wrote in a very unique style. But
Right.
guess what? Uniqueness is what you need in entrepreneurship. If you want to make money, you actually need to be unique. So chances are a lot of the little things that, like quirks around like how you show up or how you say things that you think you need to correct and be somehow perfect, actually these are the things that's going to make you memorable. you know
Absolutely.
so
Um,
that's why I'm saying that all sabotage, it's projection of authority. And if you look for where did I give my power away, and then go back in that moment and take it back,
Take it back. Yeah.
you can then change your relationship to whatever you're doing. So if you were procrastinating before, now you're finding, it's not even that hard. I can do it. Or maybe idea drops into your mind about how to do it way easier than whatever you were
Right.
trying to do, but you couldn't see it because your authority was not in you. And we only see with our authority. So that's
Yeah.
why you always want to make sure that you are a sovereign authority on yourself.
Beautiful. That reminds me of a question that I've asked everyone this year, because of the very powerful shift of Pluto going into Aquarius, which is going to be, a part of all of our lives for the next 20 years, which really for me hones in on our personal power. I'm calling it our personal revolution, right? There's a personal revolution that each of us is going to be journeying through over the next 20 years. And although we can't see into the future 20 years, maybe you can because you're clairvoyant. I'm wondering for you, Eugenia, obviously you're extremely successful. You have a beautiful life that you've created. You're helping others create their beautiful lives. What do you think your personal revolution will be like over the next 20 years? Is there something in particular that you're feeling is coming up for you?
Well, yeah, from the way that I see things, we are moving from the age of planning to the age of individuality.
Mm-hmm.
So this is about everybody discovering more of their personal power and their uniqueness and stuff like that. And for me, I've always been unique, so I sort of a forebringer of that age anyway, just by
Yes,
nature of who I am. But
absolutely.
one part that I'm learning in this lifetime, since I do everything backwards, it's actually serving me, being selfish, because I'm
Mm.
so good at serving others. I'm so good at giving to community and putting everybody first. And over the years, as I'm almost 50 years old. So as I'm getting closer and closer to that mark, I keep bringing more and more what I call selfish components, like something that's like, well, I want it this way. I want, like, this is not the time for anybody else. This is my moment. Like, I started to do 2 hour walk by the ocean every day. I make sure I
Beautiful.
meditate for 1 hour every day. Like, I do a lot of things that now just for me, which of course, I mean, we know
Yeah,
that everything is just for us. It's not just for us anyway,
right.
because then we become better and more aligned and we
And it
serve better
benefits
to that
others.
and become better, teachers, parents, whatever. So either way, it still works. But to me, that's where my journey is. And I think for
Yeah.
most people, it's the balance between external uniqueness and then understanding which part of this you need to show up with. Like, I'm not afraid of visibility, but I know for a lot of people that is a thing that's kind of scary. But in your heart of hearts, you're meant to do big things. Well,
Yeah.
then you need to show up. People
Yeah.
need to know you. So that might be your sort of inner revolution there, is to claim that you're worthy to be visible. You have
Mm.
something to say.
Yes.
And of course, the internal part as well, as in, what is in it for you? That question is very important, because if it's always about others and it's not for you, then there is no balance.
Absolutely. Beautiful. I love it. Thank you for that. So, yeah, if you're almost 50, you're going through your Chiron return, which
Yeah, it's
makes
going to be in 2 years, in a year and a half. Yeah.
so you're inching toward it, which is
Yeah.
beautiful because it sounds like you're healing that part of you that is such a giver, that you got to find the balance. Right now it's giving to yourself, but then in healing that part, you're going to be also sharing something even more special with the rest of the world. So excellent. I have so enjoyed speaking with you. I'm gonna read a few of your books. I've written it down already. I'm gonna go get the wealth book and go through it myself. So for those of you who didn't catch that, make sure to visit wealthbysouldesign.com. I'm gonna put it in the notes of this today's podcast. But also, Eugenia has a free mini series. Okay, and this is for those of you who are working on your business, especially if you're healers, coaches, therapists. And it's called Expand Your Wealth Capacity. So if you go to expandyourwealthcapacity.com, you're going to have that free mini series there with other resources that she's got there for you. So Eugenia, any final words in closing that you'd like to share with everyone listening today?
If you know in your heart of hearts that you meant for something bigger, that you meant to create impact. And whatever it is, maybe it's illogical, maybe you're thinking like, this is crazy that I'm even having this thought, but I always saw myself, somehow changing human collective consciousness. That's a clue that you actually meant to do it. You meant to do it this lifetime, and you can do it. The rest is just the tools, the strategy, the finding the right coach, reading the right book, starting to put the tools together, and showing freaking up. Like you actually have to show up speaking about whatever it is that you meant to do. So if
Yes.
it's in your heart of hearts, trust it. Don't dismiss it. Don't just think like, oh, this is like pipe dream. No,
Right.
you would
Listen.
not be able to. This is the quantum law. You will
Yes.
not be able to have that vision, have this idea at all in your being if it was not somewhere within the range of your possibilities.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. You are a blessing to the world. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. Please give us a rating. It means the world to me and to our guests as well. And can't wait to have you back to listen to another episode of the Fierce and Flowing podcast. Have a great day.